Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey, and in today's video, I will be running through my transfer plans ahead of Game Week 11. Welcome back to another video on my channel. Today, I'll be running through my Game Week 11 transfer plans with 3 free transfers. Sadly, no money in the bank though. Now, if you did enjoy today's video, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like, but most importantly, hit subscribe if you enjoyed today's show, especially as we close in on 5,000 subscribers, which would be an amazing landmark to hit before the turn of the year. So if you can help me get there, I would be forever grateful. In the meantime, let's take a quick look back at my Game Week 10 performance. I'm recording this on the Monday evening, early evening, just before the Sunderland game. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but no very highly owned players in that game. So unless Ndai goes and scores a hat trick, it's not going to really affect my rank all too much. As it turns out, 73 points seems to be enough for a green arrow, although a relatively minor one. It wasn't a brilliant week for me, but it was just above the average, so I'm happy enough. And it does land me inside the top 1 million at about 850k. It might be around 900 to 950 by the time you watch this after the Everton-Sunderland match, but we'll wait and see, and it should be enough for a green arrow of some description. Either way, though, it's not a nightmare game week, so we can have a look at this and start mapping out my future moves. So, 73 points from me. Nick Pope in goal. Very frustrating. The Newcastle defence seems to have capitulated ever since I picked him on a wild card. So a bit of a frustrating one, and maybe a position that I could look at downgrading to shift funds elsewhere, potentially. In my back line, the Arsenal defence just keeps returning. 12 points from Gabriel. What a player he's become this season. I mean, he's always been good. This season, he's taken it to a whole nother level. That Arsenal defence is elite. 2 defenders, or at least 2 Arsenal defensive picks, seems like the meta right now. So Timber and Gabriel doing the business for me. And I was delighted to see Anderson back fit again for the Wolves game. Kept a clean sheet. Didn't get DEFCON though, and in fact didn't get that close to DEFCON either, which was a little bit of a surprise. Although with the Wolves red card, possibly that affected the way that Wolves attacked, and Anderson just wasn't required to hit those defensive contributions as often as he might otherwise have been in a game where they were playing up against 11 men. So moving into my midfield, that's where all the disappointments lie. Saka blanked with 2 big chances. Really was hoping for him to bury at least one of those. And he might be a player that I'm willing to downgrade at some point pretty soon to help shift funds elsewhere if he continues to disappoint. Or maybe even this week if I'm desperate to do so. Semenyo has blanked again. So again, not fantastic from him, although it is worth noting the fixtures round the corner are much better. So a little bit frustrating as of late, but I've got value tied up in him and fixtures are about to become a lot better. Enzo blanked. Again, fixtures over the next 2 look good and the data looks good. He was a bit unfortunate not to get anything against Spurs. So a player that I'm pretty happy to hold on to for now. And Ismail Assar hit the post after scoring twice in midweek. That just seems to be my luck at the moment. But I do still have a relative amount of faith in him that he will come good. He just seems to be a bit of a streaky player, and he got his 2 goals in the cup. Couldn't quite reproduce that in the league, but those things happen, and hopefully that amount of variance, that amount of luck, whatever you want to call it, will come back my way in Game Week 11. Into my forward line, I did hold on to João Pedro against my better judgment. I did want to get rid of him, so I'm not going to sit here and say, told you so, he's amazing, I had him all along. I would have preferred to move him on for Mateta, and if I had made that move, I'd still be pretty happy about it. They did match each other, but Mateta looked good yet again. And he looks like a fantastic player to be holding on to for the foreseeable with good fixtures to come. However, I couldn't find an easy route to Mateta that I liked, given that I had nothing in the bank. And João Pedro, I would say, gave his best performance in at least a month, possibly a couple of months now, with a goal against Spurs, 5 shots on goal, all on target. I think 2 or 3 big chances in there. I think relatively unlucky not to get another goal in that game. And of course, that non-assist to Gittins in the 90th odd minute where Gittins skied it, that could have been enough for a double-digit return for João Pedro. So now that I've got him, and he looked back to his, or near enough to his best, I don't think it was quite the best level that we've seen him at, but he looked much more comfortable, not so plagued by injury. He's got 2 good fixtures to come, so I'm happier to own him now than I was this time last week, put it that way. But 9 points from him, very happy to get something from him finally. And of course, Erling Haaland with 2 returns, 2 goals, got brought off before the hat-trick. 13 points from him. The final player in my 11 that I should talk about is Nick Woltemade, who went off at half-time in the Newcastle game against West Ham. That is particularly worrying, considering that it doesn't seem to be an injury. It doesn't seem to be to conserve minutes, and they were losing the game. So you would think that they would want their marquee signing, star striker on the pitch, who has looked really good thus far in the Premier League. But Eddie Howe said after the match that he could have substituted anyone at halftime, given how bad they all were. He chose to sub off Gordon and Woltemade. I'm pretty worried about Woltemade's minutes moving forward. So that is a player that I am now greatly concerned by. I still back him to start most games, but if the minutes are in question, there are other strikers right now who have penalties, who have better data, who have better fixtures, and now look like having better minutes as well. So he might be someone that I look at moving on pretty urgently. Although I don't want to just panic sell off of one halftime substitution. I still think he'll start the Brentford game next up. So it's not a complete crisis with him. But if there was one player that I was looking to move on right now in that starting 11, it would more than likely be him right now. On my bench, I've got Longstaff, who got 59 minutes this week. So up until now, 90-minute man, I was pretty happy with having him with a bench boost upcoming. But now he got brought off early, and Leeds fans also were not happy with the performance there at all. I'm a little bit worried that his minutes are in question as well, especially with a bench boost on the horizon. Do I need to think about that as a position I need to sort out in the next few days ahead of bench boosting? Right then, so let's take a look at a few different transfer combinations I'm considering going into Game Week 11. And I do apologise for the very busy, very cluttered graphic here. It's probably not the best one that I'll be making all season, but there are a lot of different combinations and it is quite hard to fit them all on screen. I think number one is the one that I'm most closely considering right now. That would be upgrading Nick Woltemade, who I've already expressed concerns with, and moving him across to Jean-Philippe Mateta, who I am very happy with. I do still want him after another impressive performance in Game Week 10. Good fixtures to come. That would be a logical upgrade in my mind anyway. I now need 0.6 to make that move happen. One of the most obvious or easiest routes that I could free up money with is to downgrade Bukayo Saka. Now, he's not a player that I've lost faith in at all yet, but he is expensive and he's not really returning on that price point at the moment. So there are good options that I can move him down to that I would still be very happy with over the next few game weeks that still offer a lot of attacking upside. And I don't know how much I'd be losing by moving across to them. However, I would also be losing 2 free transfers and a player that, again, possibly has penalties, has good underlying data, and is in a very good attack, who are projected to do very well over the next few fixtures. Up against a promoted side this week as well, it is worth noting. So hesitant to do it, but if I did, Mbeumo, Fernandes, Rice, all good options that I'd be very happy to have in my midfield, but would I be happy enough having them over Saka just to make the upgrade from Nick Woltemade to Mateta? I think out of those 3 options, Fernandes would probably be the likeliest because he still has penalties. He's still got good underlying attacking data, DEFCON as well, good fixtures to come, 90-minute man. He ticks all of the boxes as a player that I'd want to hold for a very long amount of time. With Mbeumo, similar, doesn't have penalties though, and I do need to worry about the African Cup of Nations around game week 16-17. Not a massive problem, but it might just be enough to sway me towards Fernandes at this point, although there really isn't much in it. And honestly, if there was anything I wanted to do with that extra money, instead of going for Fernandes, obviously Mbeumo's a bit cheaper, and I could use that money elsewhere, then it might be worth doing because there's not much between the two. If I wanted to stick with Arsenal attack, I still quite like Declan Rice, and it does save me a lot of money. It keeps an Arsenal attacker in my side. He's not got terrible underlying data. He does pick up the odd DEFCON. He does still have reasonable attacking threat, and he's got set pieces from the other side to Bukayo Saka, so I've still got a chunk of the Arsenal set piece juggernaut that continues to roll on week. So I'm not ruling out Declan Rice, and there's a lot that I could do with that money. But does it feel a little bit too much like forcing it just to get rid of Bukayo Saka because he's blanked a couple of game weeks in a row? I still haven't lost faith in him, and I feel like at some point a correction is coming where he will just overperform on the data in any given game week, and it will all level out a little bit. I think he's been a bit unlucky, and more often than not, when you're a bit unlucky, that does tend to level out over a long run average. So would I just be getting rid of a player before I get that cash in kind of moment. So I'm worried about making those moves because I do still like Bukayo Saka. Now, option 2, I mentioned the fact that if I went with Mbeumo, I might have that extra money to use elsewhere. Of course, I've got 3 free transfers. So if I went with Mbeumo instead of Fernandes in that combination, I could use that extra money to upgrade Sean Longstaff, who I've, again, already expressed concerns with his minutes ahead of bench boosting in game week 11 or 12. To someone like a Yankuba Minter. I could also look at Caicedo, by the way, or anyone else up to about 6 million. So there are plenty of options there. I've used Minter as an example, but we could insert Caicedo there. We could insert a Xhaka there possibly as well. There are plenty of options. But again, using 3 free transfers, getting rid of Saka, that does make me a little bit worried that I might be wasting my transfers ever so slightly and maybe getting rid of a player before they cash in on those expected points. But I do like that combination of 3 players, Mateta, Mbeumo and Minter, all really strong, and it would help me with a bench boost to get rid of Longstaff, who I now have a little bit of a doubt over. And again, if I've got any Leeds fans watching this video, please drop a comment below and let me know what you think of Longstaff and whether or not he's secure to start over the next couple of game weeks, especially game week 11, in case I do choose to bench boost. That would be really helpful. So moving down to options 3 and 4, I won't spend quite as long on these two because they're a little bit less likely. But another way that I could save the money to go for Mateta over Voltemada would be to downgrade my keeper position, Pope, down to a 4.5. I've chosen Kelleher here. I do quite like the fixtures long term. Weirdly, I'm also slightly more tempted to go with him because he's got an excellent penalty saving ratio. So you might just get lucky and spike a big return one game week, because I do actually believe that he's better than the average keeper at saving penalties. So I might get a bit lucky there. He's very good at shot stopping as well, so you'll get the odd save point out of him. I'm not totally sure whether making a keeper transfer is an optimal way of using quite precious transfers at this point. Option number 4 would be to not go for Mateta, but actually to downgrade Voltemada to Thiago, who I do like as a long-term striker option, saves a bit of money, and then I could upgrade my midfield. Maybe Semenyo up to someone like a Bruno Fernandes could be quite a powerful way of getting a very good midfielder alongside Bukayo Saka rather than instead of Bukayo Saka. I do say that these 2 options are unlikely, especially number 4, because I don't really want to get rid of Semenyo ahead of this run of fixtures. But it will play on my mind slightly over the next few days, because at the end of the day, Fernandes is a fantastic option. So is Bukayo Saka, and I do wonder if it would be quite cool to find a way to have both of them in my side. But at the expense of Semenyo, I'm not sure it's worth it. So those are my 4 transfer options. Number 5 is obviously rolling my transfer yet again, because Voltemada will probably start. Longstaff might be okay for minutes. It might just be worth rolling and waiting for more information, especially as all of my players are fit at the moment. And that will give me 4 free transfers going into game week 12, which could be really powerful, especially because the Liverpool fixtures do start to swing, and 4 free transfers could get me a route to multiple Liverpool players, maybe more Crystal Palace players. It just offers a lot of alternatives, and a proper restructuring can be done with that many free transfers. So lots of options there. I would say option 1 is maybe my most likely out of the transfer options, but I wouldn't rule out just rolling the transfer yet again. Let's go back to how my team is shaping up ahead of game week 11. Okay, so moving across to my team ahead of game week 11 with no transfers used. Of course, I've got 3 of them to use if I wanted to. I think a lot really relies on how confident I am of a start for 2 players in particular. That is Nick Voltemada and Sean Longstaff. Now, Voltemada's the most important one, clearly, because he's in my starting 11. So if I have any doubts over his minutes going into game week 11, then I would be very tempted to make the moves that I suggested earlier on, possibly even that option number 1, which would be to downgrade Saka to upgrade Voltemada. Now, I think it's unlikely that we get any sort of confirmation on Voltemada's minutes going into game week 11, but we might get some indication from the midweek fixtures, so I'm going to look out for that. And of course, I will be having a team selection video after the Champions League fixtures in the midweek where we'll have a bit more information, and maybe I will have a bit more of a strong stance either way on whether Voltemada is a hard sell or someone that I can just roll the dice on and hope that he starts yet again. And right now I'm leaning towards the idea that he probably will start game week 11, but I'm open to changing my mind. The second player that I'm worried about, of course, is Sean Longstaff. Now, that doesn't matter so much if I'm not bench boosting this game week, but it is something that I am strongly considering because it is rare that I've got a full playing 15 that are all fit, and without needing to use any free transfers, I could bench boost if I think all of them start. And outside of Longstaff and Voltemada, I'm pretty confident that the rest do. And I think the fixtures on the bench they're not perfect, but I think they're probably good enough that I could bench boost. So we're looking at Dubravka away at West Ham. It's not a great fixture, especially away from home, but it's not an awful fixture. And at least you would hope for a save point or two. Longstaff away at Nottingham Forest. Again, not terrible if I think he starts. And if he starts, he's on corners, he's on set pieces. So you might spike something. He's hit the odd DEFCON as well, so I might get lucky there. Rodon, very similar. Nottingham Forest's attacking data isn't great. Maybe I'll get lucky with DEFCON. Again, I'm not expecting big returns from my bench, but if even one of them can get something, then my bench boost could look at something between 10 to 15 points. And I would be very happy with that. And more importantly than anything else, just get it out of the way so I don't need to worry about having a 15 strong team every single week up until the next chance or next opportunity I get to bench boost. The final player, Anderson, on my bench away at Everton. That's absolutely fine. I expect him to hit DEFCON. Outside chance of a clean sheet, as the same goes for Rodon with Dubravka as well. If one of those three teams can keep a clean sheet, then my bench boost is probably a success in my opinion. And if Longstaff or any of the other defenders can get an attacking return, then I'm quids in, very, very fortunate. My starting 11, I'm pretty secure on. Double Arsenal defence away at Sunderland. Saka against Sunderland, again, is probably fine. I'm happy with that. In my midfield, Semenyo, Enzo, Sarr, all pretty fine. I don't really need to worry about moving them on right now. João Pedro up front, I think I'm much more comfortable with him than I was this time last week. Haaland currently has my armband because he's inevitable, but a discussion will be had about maybe moving that across to maybe a Chelsea player at home to Wolves, possibly Sunderland away for Arsenal could be a good opportunity. I think it's likely to stay on Haaland. And then Senesi will likely get DEFCON away at Aston Villa. Pope against Brentford away from home. Not ideal, but it's fine. I don't think there's any transfers I need to make unless I'm looking at bench boosting or there are significant doubts over Voltemada's minutes going into game week 11. Of course, we could still get injuries during the midweek. So I'm leaving all my options open and hopefully all of my players survive the midweek fixtures, and I've at least got the bench boost to consider going into game week 11. There is also a chance that bench boost 12 could be an option for me. So I will consider that as we approach the deadline. But like I said, the two players that I've got my eye on right now are Longstaff and Voltemada, and all of my transfer plans probably revolve around those two and whether or not I want to bench boost. Now, as we reach the end of today's video, I'd massively appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you've got any questions of your own, do feel free to drop them in the comments below and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. I'll see you very, very shortly as we run through my team selection ahead of game week 11.